Today, I want to cover some quirky or even just uncommon rules in Age of Sigmar that might be devastating in their ability to change the game. You might not see these every round, or even in every local meta. So let's hop to it and do some quickfire rules with some explanations behind the more complex interactions to help you avoid those gotcha moments in games at your club or in tournaments. Firstly, I'm going to tackle one of the hard ones, the Bastilodon 1+ save. This rule is a bit tricky, but the short of it, if you would like to skip ahead after, is that whilst the Bastilodon has its natural 1+ save, it is unrendable. -1, -2, -1,000,000, it doesn't matter. This is caused by quite a beautiful overlapping of the rules. To fully explain this, we need to bring together and understand different factors and how they all interact. So firstly, let's acknowledge a simple one. A natural 1 is always a fail. No one will debate this? Great, we can move on. Now for the little known one. When you modify a dice roll, it can never be less than 1. This means that if I roll a 2 and you apply rend 5, it is a result of 1 rather than -3. Now, let's finally look at those rend rules. In shorthand play on the tabletop, if I attack your model that has a 4+ save with a rend of 1, you will roll as if you have a save of 5+. This is a great way to make the maths easier and completely skip it. But it falls apart in one particular case, and this just so happens to be the case. The reality of the rule for rend is that it affects the dice roll and not the save specifically, meaning we can never push the roll below a 1 as per the modified roll rule from just before. And that's how it comes together. Regardless of your rend, you can never get my modified roll below a 1. And since on my base save a 1+ is a success, it will always pass. The only way for me to fail is to roll a natural unmodified 1, and therefore fail due to the rule of unmodified 1s failing automatically. Thus, we can get back to the model being unrendable whilst it has this 1+ save, as your rend is not actually relevant to the saves being made. Note, after taking a few wounds away, I personally recommend doing this via mortal wounds, you can now go nuts and rend the Bastilodon into oblivion, as its save will move to a 2+, and it can now fail on modified 1s, meaning you can go ham and chop it to bits. Next, let's look at the Morathi 2 Souls rule. It's a great little rule out of the new Morathi book. Now, she has 2 models on the table, but only Snake Morathi will take damage, and it's limited to a maximum of 3 per turn, including when we use endless spells such as the Pendulum, which theoretically hits between rounds. During battle plans such as Places of Arcane Power, it is crucial to make sure that Morathi does not reach 2 separate objectives and avoid taking damage every turn. What I would personally do is prioritize speed bumping the hero and focusing on doing damage every turn, including the enemy player's turn, to make sure she goes down fast enough to let you win on the objectives. Stardrakes and Concussors have always been able to slow down or entirely prevent an enemy piling. Luckily for most players, these have been less common in our local scenes, as they can really upset the course of a game. For example, that Stardrake could eat some units in your army whilst preventing them moving, causing you to lose some of your models within the unit to unit coherency. But in the latest book, Morathi, this is becoming more common, and quite likely coming to a table near you soon, as when a net from the Deepkin Shark hits you, they can also prevent you from piling in. Assuming your opponent has one of these models, I will be very wary of spreading my models out in a long line, knowing that they could prevent me bringing my army's power to bear by the mere act of shooting me with said net. A lot of armies out there, for example Bone Splitters from Orc War Clans, have the ability to move before the game even begins. This often allows them to screen in front of their army or even onto objectives that are normally unavailable at deployment. Rules such as this, whilst prevalent in a small quantity, are more than likely coming to that table near you. Again, with the Morathi book adding the ability to redeploy a section of the Stormcast Eternal's army after setup and outside of 9 inches. Already we have heard horror stories of plans to put walls of 30 Liberators directly in front of the enemy line. I would say to you that it is worth having a look at how your army might address this issue. Are you able to fly over them? Are you able to punch a hole through them? Or maybe you're fast enough to just simply walk around them. Whatever your solution, it's worth having a think before this happens on the table. Some armies have the ability to run and shoot, be it naturally or from buffs and abilities. This can massively change the threat range of a unit, such as the Bastilodon we mentioned earlier. With the right army build, and without even using a teleport, this bad boy can potentially shoot you at a range of 36 inches by combining his move of 5 with a run of 6, plus 1 from their constellation bonus, and then following up with a range 24 laser beam. Be sure to ask your opponent what the maximum threat of their units is, and ask them to include any buffs which could alter this, as it can often make or break your army as early as the deployment phase. Some armies have the ability to alter when they activate in the combat phase. Most notably, we have the Hermdar Lodge's Half-Guard Berserkers. They are able to fight first, meaning that if your army fights normally, even in your turn, they are able to fight before you get a chance to activate. Similarly, Slaanesh has the Locus of Diversion, which allows them to make you fight last, which would mean that you can only fight after every other unit in combat has gone first, potentially turning a sure victory into a complete loss. As with a lot of rules here, be sure to ask your opponent if their army is able to participate in what is more commonly called the Activation Wars, so that you know if they have any shenanigans that might be able to take you unawares. When a Tzeentch player uses their Destiny dice, they must spend 2 for all dice rolls that involve 2 dice like a charge, so no using a single 6 and then rolling the other. And all dice chosen via Destiny dice are counted as unmodified, except, as per the FAQ, saves and battleshocks, though the battleshock Destiny dice still counts for the purpose of the horror icon with an unmodified 1. Due to a favourable FAQ, not only do you have to think differently when fighting Sons of Behemat and their ability to move objectives, but in some battle plans such as Battle for the Pass, you also have to think about the point value of an objective based on its location. This means that a cunning player with a penchant for football can kick their home objective into your territory, meaning their objective is now only worth 1 victory point to you, but they now have a second objective worth 4 victory points to them because it is in your territory. I would personally recommend rereading and double checking those battle plans before you play your games against Sons of Behemat. If in doubt, always ask your opponent as well, as I'm sure they will be the expert on the subject matter and able to tell you before the moment happens in game. Now, let's have a quick peek at some deadly combinations, such as another rule that's always existed, but is going to gain a larger footprint in the meta with the new Sons of Behemat, having lots of access to the ability to slay enemy models. You will see a case of where an enemy unit piles in and attacks, but then the Sons of Behemat player piles in. They then slay some of your models to break unit coherency, causing their enemy to then lose models at the end of the battleshock phase, as they are no longer maintaining this unit coherency. A great way to counter this is to let the enemy giant fight you first, assuming the results would not be too catastrophic for you, or alternatively to layer up your models to prevent a cheeky 2 or 3 models being picked out of the unit and breaking up your ranks. Should it happen, allocate any damage the giant does with its attacks to the side that you would want to lose to unit coherency anyway, to minimise your total damage taken by the end of the round. Next, let's move over to the Iron Jaws, or even the Big War. The rule, Mad as Hell, lets you move d6 inches at the end of a phase after you take damage in a phase, assuming you are outside of 9 of your enemy. A neat little trick you might see here from those players is puking on their own units for d3 mortal wounds, then, at the end of the hero phase, moving d6 inches because they took damage in that phase. What a great little use of rules in a less than obvious way. Next, we're looking at one that I learnt, to my horror, in a tournament match, catching me completely unawares, but also impressing me with the ingenuity of the enemy player. As most people know, Wrathmongers allow nearby Khorne models to add 1 to their attack's characteristic, a great little force multiplier. But a little known fact is that Skarbrand, the head honcho bloodthirster of Khorne, has an attack named Carnage, and whilst this uses different rules for hits and damage, it does have an attack's characteristic, meaning that it is possible to roll 2 dice for Carnage. Assuming your opponent, like in my case, rolls 2 6s, this could be a whopping 32 mortal wounds before they even swing their normal attacks at you. Yikes. As of recording, one of the quickest ways to lose friends is by using a cheeky Teclis combo with endless spells. Friendly endless spells such as cogs or twin stones can then use the Seeing Stone of Selenar rule on Teclis to roll to see if this will affect your units, with each 4+ ignoring these buffs, but also inflicting d3 mortal wounds to an enemy unit within 18 inches for each roll achieved. For cogs alone, if your army has 8 units, this would be a whopping 4d3 mortal wounds. If we then add on the twin stones, you could roll against your own plus to cast buff on each casting attempt, in some sub-factions meaning 2 casts per unit, for a further average of 8d3 mortal wounds. This is a fantastic way to lose your friends, but it's also not strictly against the rules. I would watch out for opponents who are set up to use this combination in a game until Games Workshop sees fit to address it. Whilst I have not covered everything that could be considered a quirky rule, I hope that I've given you a greater breadth of knowledge in these areas, maybe even preventing one of those gotcha moments happening to you, be it at a tournament or just a casual setting where you didn't expect the interaction. There's nothing worse than one of these moments ruining the game and the experience with another player. As always, if you think there was something I missed or have gotten wrong, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again shortly.